Most stories on Greek mythology that we often see portrayed in modern media revolve around tales of heroism, but littered throughout the many poems and stories stemming from ancient Greek myth are tales of romance and love. While they're often just a footnote in a hero's epic or the ending of one, let's take a look at one story in Greek mythology where its main theme is romance. This is the tale of Orpheus and his love for Eurydice. Among the pantheon of Greek gods and goddesses, some are well known to be masters of music, able to play a tune so divine that it moves the hearts of other gods and goddesses. You might be aware of such gods like Apollo with the lyre, Pan with the reeds, or the Muses with their enchanting voices. No mortal could ever hope to achieve the level of musical skill these divine beings possess, except for one man, Orpheus. Orpheus had his musical talent passed down from his mother's side, as he was an offspring of one of the Muses. His father was told to be a Thracian prince, but another version said Apollo was the one who sired Orpheus. Nevertheless, his prowess in music was second to none in the realm of mortals. Orpheus grew up in Thrace, a place where music thrived. It encouraged him to pursue his talents without much difficulties, enabling him to freely foster his musical talents. Not much was written about his childhood, but suffice to say that he was born a musical genius, and he had the perfect upbringing that enabled him to reach his full potential. Seeing how talented Orpheus was, Apollo, the god of music and poetry, took notice and fashioned for Orpheus his first lyre. To illustrate how skilled Orpheus is, ancient Greek writers describe that when Orpheus plucked the strings of his lyres, both animate and inanimate objects danced to his tune. Whenever he went to the forest near his home to play his lyre, the creatures of the forest and the forest itself would sway and be moved by his charming tunes. His singing and skill with musical instruments became so well known that when the famous expedition to retrieve the Golden Fleece led by Jason was announced, he was recruited to come aboard the Argo and sail with a whole group of heroes. The roster of heroes included names such as Hercules, Theseus, Castor and Pollux, and many more, to be recognized not for his fighting prowess, but instead for his talent with singing and music is really saying something. His skills with music actually saved the crew on numerous occasions. When the crew would argue and fight one another due to a disagreement, Orpheus's music would calm their rage. When the heroes were tired from rowing and their spirits shaken, Orpheus's songs would invigorate them anew, reigniting their lost strength and spirit. During such moments, they would smite the waters to the beat of Orpheus's shanty. One of the most notable uses of Orpheus's musical prowess, however, would have been the time when he defeated the Call of the Sirens with his own singing. When Jason and the Argonauts were sailing through the seas adjacent to the Sirens' territory, the Sirens did what they were known to do best, lure seafarers to their demise with their hypnotic singing. The moment Orpheus heard the Sirens' alluring call, he immediately started to sing too, his music more powerful than the Sirens' singing. Hearing his music, the heroes and men who were charmed by the Sirens immediately regained their senses and quickly sailed away. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that Orpheus had saved the lives of the Argonauts more than once. Though he had little to no physical prowess, his musical prowess was bordering on the mystical. Little else is known about Orpheus's early life, but his love story began after he completed his expedition with Jason and the Argonauts. Orpheus never had any flings or love interests before the expedition. The only one he was known to have loved was a nymph named Eurydice. After returning from the expedition, Orpheus found himself in the company of Eurydice in the forests. Love bloomed fast between them as they spent time dancing and singing together in the forest. Orpheus then asked for Eurydice's hand in marriage, and she gladly accepted. They were so deeply in love with each other that the god of marriages himself, Hymen, was the one who wed them. But amidst all the joy and festivities, Hymen warned the overjoyed couple that happiness had an expiration date. Mere moments after the wedding, tragedy struck. In one version of the story, a minor god, Aristaeus, was jealous of Orpheus and tried to snatch Eurydice away. In another version, Eurydice was overjoyed after the wedding and went into the woods to dance and celebrate with the other nymphs. Whichever was the case, Eurydice was bit by a viper in the woods and lost her life. Orpheus was wary of Hymen's prophecy, but he was heartbroken to find out their happiness had expired so soon. He had never known a grief so deep. But Orpheus was no mere mortal. He decided that he would go to the realm of Hades and try to charm the god of death himself to bring Eurydice back to the realm of the living. So Orpheus made his way to the entrance of the underworld. There, he was met with the three-headed guard dog of the underworld, Cerberus. The guard dog's task was to prevent any living being from entering the underworld, and his menacing presence is usually enough to accomplish that. But Orpheus easily charmed Cerberus with his singing and entered the underworld. He next encountered Charon the ferryman and did the same thing using his singing and his words. Enchanting Charon with his music, Orpheus managed to get Charon to ferry him deeper into the underworld. Orpheus continued his trudge through the realm of the dead, charming and enchanting every creature he met with his music. He eventually reached Hades' palace and was granted audience with the god of death himself and his consort Persephone. Orpheus was said then to have played a tune so sorrowful that it moved the hearts of every being in his presence, including Hades and Persephone. The words Orpheus used to persuade Hades were masterfully crafted. He said that he only wanted to borrow Eurydice, as sooner or later, all mortals would go to his realm. That death is a debt that everyone must pay eventually. Hades and Persephone were so moved by Orpheus' music and his love for Eurydice, they agreed to his plea on one term. He must take the hands of his wife and walk back to the entrance of the underworld, but he mustn't look back to see Eurydice until both of them are out of the underworld and basking in sunlight. Orpheus thought that this was a very small ordeal compared to what he went through to get here, and most importantly, compared to the prize he was promised at the end of it. So Hades summoned Eurydice's soul, who had taken the form of a shade, and bid them leave the underworld together. The walk back was not easy, but Orpheus had a newfound strength in his step. His faith was tested many times, as shades don't have solid feet, thus they don't make any sound when they walk. As they reached the cavern entrance, Orpheus was giddy with excitement. The moment he stepped out into the sunlight, he immediately looked back with a big grin on his face. But sadly, Eurydice was still in the cavern entrance. The sunlight has yet to touch her shade form. Then and there, Eurydice was immediately taken back to the depths of the underworld. Orpheus wasn't allowed back inside the realm of the dead. Not while he was still living. No mortal may step foot twice inside the underworld while they were alive. Heartbroken, Orpheus resigned to the company of the forest and its inhabitants. His grief was so deep, as was his love for Eurydice, that he vowed to never again involve himself with humans. He spent the rest of his days in the woods, playing his sorrowful tunes with the trees and rocks as his audience. One day, a band of Maenads, followers of Dionysus, came upon Orpheus in the woods. They were in a state of frenzy after drinking the wine they prepared. In their fervor, the Maenads murdered Orpheus, as he was an avid worshipper of Apollo, Dionysus' rival god in music and revelry. They threw his mutilated body down the river, where it found its way to the Muses. His head was kept in the island sanctuary of the Muses, while his body was later buried at the foot of Mount Olympus. It was said that the nightingales there sing and sound better than in any other parts. Although according to Greek mythology his story ended in tragedy, I'd like to believe that Orpheus eventually found his happiness with Eurydice in the underworld. One might interpret that in death they finally end up together, filling the halls of Hades' palace with the sounds of their intertwining melodies. In the end, death didn't part them, it finally brought them together instead.